C2 Wrestling Podcast, CTD and Snowden, two non-cowards here to talk to hopefully some other non-cowards. Subscribe, unless you are a coward and don't want to, then we just don't respect you. It's simple as that. But we're on the road to WrestleMania. We are just under 7 weeks away from the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania 42. We have matches confirmed. We have stories leading us to believe what we're getting at WrestleMania. We have some question marks to get into. Elimination Chamber has wrapped, but has it really given us the matches that we're expecting at WrestleMania? All that and more after we know how Snowden's doing today.
How is Snowden doing today? I'm doing good. We record these pods once a week, all sorts of time frames. Today, bright and early, I hear the roosters out. I'm tired of shit. It's 11:15 a.m. It's not that early, but for me, bright and early. So got up to make this happen today. We're going to make it work. A lot of things to get into, as you said, it's WrestleMania season, baby. This is the time of the year. If you are a wrestling fan, this is your season. This is the NFL playoffs for wrestling fans. We got about 6 weeks, 6.5 weeks until the show, and it's shaping up, man. Last week's Raw, or this week's Raw, I should say, just prior, really started to shape things up post-Elimination Chamber. We got SmackDown tomorrow. That should get us the SmackDown side of things a little bit more shaped up. I'm looking forward to it, man. Raw has me a little bit more pumped because I think we're starting to see the clearer picture of things that not only are good, but that we specifically asked for at C2 Wrestling. We wanted some of these feuds to happen this way. We wanted some of these matches to get set up this way. And it looks like we're getting a few of them, so I'm glad. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I feel obviously people online are always pretty tough to please. And you get into a spot where you have like a long stretch of, let's call it, really bad to mediocre shows, and it makes people even harsher critics. Like Monday Night Raw this week, I thought was pretty good, like especially in comparison, but that to me was a fine show, top to bottom. It flowed pretty well. At when we were at the Penta Dom match, I was like, oh wow, it's 10 o'clock. It's about to be Punk Roman right after this. Like the show is over. Like they got there already. Weeks prior, it was a drag. It was one of those where you feel like you're at the last segment and you look at the clock and you're only an hour in. You still have an hour and a half to go and you're stunned. But as I mentioned, I feel like people, they become a little bit of harsher critics when things are bad, which is fair. But I feel like like this week's Raw compared to last week or the week before, it's like, I don't want to say there's nothing to complain about, but I think we need to ease up a little bit. Tonight's NXT, we're on Tuesday. Last night's Raw, this was we're getting the path to WrestleMania, but we're not just getting the most obvious, this person is facing this person. We're still getting a little bit of like, okay, Rollins might face Logan. He might face Theory. He might face both of them. But he really might face Braun Breaker. Like, there's still a little bit of that blurred, okay, this could go a few ways. I'm quite happy, and it definitely left us a lot to talk about last night. And we left stuff out doing our Raw review, knowing that there's more to talk about today and for SmackDown.
Yeah, I mean, similar. You just bring up SmackDown at the end of that. The fatal four-way, potential fatal four-way. Orton winning the Chamber, Cody, Drew, Fatu. We like to believe they're leading us towards this fatal four-way right now, and I hope that's the end-all, be-all. But there still is a little bit of like, all right, what are they going to give us? Alistair's getting involved with Orton. Or are they going a different route? There's still a lot of questions in a good way. Again, just off the back of the Monday Night Raw, though, we left stuff out. Like you said, there was more to talk about, and we figured, we got an hour every week that we do that. We sit here and we talk every week for an hour. So let's hold some stuff for that. It was a good Raw. It was a little better than good, if I'm being honest. It wasn't the best Raw of all time, but there was great moments. One of them, a significantly great moment that, again, this is Tuesday we are recording, so we're only 12 hours off the back of that Monday Night Raw. But I stay up all night. I was up till 5 a.m. I did not see a whole lot of like Penta love, Penta talk. I thought that throughout the fandom would have been a bigger moment. Penta finally wins his first championship, Intercontinental Champion. He's going to be champion going into WrestleMania. Took a year to get there. Penta's over the moon. That's a great moment. I'm glad they pulled the trigger on that. The counteract of that is it likely helps set up the Judgment Day triple threat, which doesn't necessarily need the IC title. I would have been totally okay with it being for the IC title. I like the idea of Finn or potentially JD being the one to swoop in there and get that big Mania win. It's tough, though. Every WrestleMania, you can't have all 14 titles change hands or whatever. I feel like that's the end of the year. It's the fiscal wrestling year again. Everybody expects all these title changes, big things to happen at WrestleMania. Odds are, whoever Penta defends against, Penta retains, considering it's a brand new champion. Judgment Day's story, though, is deeper than the title in ways. Again, still wanted it to have the title, but I understand why they took it off of Dom for this Judgment Day match. The end of the Judgment Day is on the horizon. There's beef with the women, beef with the men. I'm looking forward to that a lot more than I thought I would. I mean, I knew I would want that, but now that we see they're going that route, I'm hyped for it. I want it more than I thought I did.
I love Dom. I've always liked Dom. He does have a bit of the cult following. I kind of somewhat compare it to like LA Knight. I really like LA Knight, but he's got such a like cult following fan base that sometimes things happen and I'm like, all right, let's chill here. Like, let's still stay in reality. Like, I love this guy. Don't get me wrong. I have favorites too. Gunther's my favorite. And I think, I think he should be facing Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. I thought that should have been the route, but whatever. I've adjusted, I've moved on, and I'm buying into a Gunther Rey Mysterio match, even though it's not what I preferred. I bring all that up to say, I love Dom, but him dropping the IC title, I've been asking for literally months. Now, I asked for it when he first got hurt, not because I don't like Dom. As I said, I love Dom. But the IC title was going nowhere, and Dom was injured. And I was saying, like, just get it on someone. The show needs the title and needs some stories around the title. You don't have that happen. Then Dom comes back, gets into a few matches, and finally drops the title. To me, the reaction for Penta hasn't been as positive because there is such a big following for Dom that fans are upset Dom lost the IC title. They weren't doing anything with that championship. They haven't done anything with that championship for months. So to me, this is the best of both worlds. I'm getting a story that I'm invested in the Judgment Day breakup, and a story that to me doesn't need a championship because it's been going on for so long, and I'm invested in all members of the Judgment Day. And another person that I like is now a champion and might have a WrestleMania match defending that title. To me, it's like this works out perfect. I love the way this is playing out. I love that they're doing this. They very easily could have just kept the IC title on Dom and played that story out for 7 weeks and had the triple threat be for the IC title. And then you're like, damn, where does Penta fit in? Now, instead of just one really good story and one mediocre story, you can have 2 good stories. Is that so much to ask for? Like, I can't believe there hasn't been like excitement and happiness for Penta. And I don't think it's like a people don't like Penta. I think it's a people love Dom so much that they're letting it cloud their happiness for Penta.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too of it being a little abrupt of a win for Penta. It kind of does come out of the blue. It's only a couple weeks prior to Mania. It does feel a little bit like plans changed type thing. I love Penta. I'm very glad he's champion. It does feel a little, when you're 5-6 weeks out from the big PLE WrestleMania, it feels a little like, all right, what's going on backstage? Why did they do this? They must have kind of just came up with this plan to take the title off Dom, which I do agree. The title should have came off Dom probably a couple months ago. I was never a fan of him losing it to Cena. It's a fine moment, whatever. But when he did lose it to Cena, he should have lost it to somebody else permanently at that point. That should have kind of been the transition into a new champion, and you could build up. If it was Penta back then in November, Penta from November to April could have built an established feud with somebody for this IC title. Not that he can't in the 5-6 weeks left till WrestleMania, but it's a different type of feud when you're going out for months into WrestleMania. We talked a little bit through the Monday Night Raw review of who can Penta get at WrestleMania. There's a couple names in that pool, but we know who Dirty Dom is getting. And that's the bigger story. It's not crazy to say that the stories can mean more than championships at times. That is the big prize you're fighting for, the IC title, the WWE Championship, whatever it is. But there's more worth in the payoff of Finn, Dom, and JD than there is in the payoff of Finn, Dom, or JD winning the championship, retaining the championship, whatever it may be. I also think on the flip side, putting that title on Penta, whoever he gets at WrestleMania, it can be El Grande, it can be original El Grande, it could be Bad Money, Dragon Lee, it could be a paper bag. Penta's going to put on a banger.
Could be me. Could be you.
Could be me. Could be me. Could be us.
Could be one of our mascots. Richie Puffs and Tommy Boy. Could be either of them.
Could be.
There is one person that it also could be that I don't think we would want it to be, but there's really not many avenues for said person. And that's L.A. Knight. So L.A. Knight on Monday Night Raw has a segment where he takes Paul Heyman away in the ambulance. Great moment. Pretty cool. Attitude Era feel to the craziness of the hectic opening. But if we go 48 hours before that, he's eliminated in the Elimination Chamber from a low blow by Logan Paul. You immediately start thinking, what is LA Knight doing at WrestleMania? Now, the rumors say he's going to face Brock Lesnar. Not impossible. Some might say it's actually still likely. Then we get Obafemi announced to face Rusev on Raw next week, and you're kind of leaning, well, maybe they are going to go Obafemi against Brock Lesnar. Maybe Oba is going to answer the call. I still see some people say they think Gunther is going to face Brock. They still think that might happen at WrestleMania. I doubt it, considering Gunther clearly is now going to have a storyline with masks. But if it's not Brock, and I don't want to say Penta is kind of a step back, but the Intercontinental Championship kind of feels like not a step back, but a wrong turn for an LA Knight. It's not going to be Bronson Reed. He's injured. If Braun Breaker's healthy, it's not going to be him. It's probably not going to be Logan or Theory. He's already faced Logan plenty, and they're feuding with the Usos on top of it. Who is left for LA Knight that makes sense?
That's nobody. Truly nobody. Penta is not necessarily a step back. The IC title is not necessarily a step back, but in this situation for LA Knight, it kind of is. Also considering what I just said previously, where Penta's a brand new champion. He just won the title. He's only going to be a champion for 5-6 weeks. Could he lose it at WrestleMania? Yeah, I mean, he could. Is he going to? Probably not. So by putting LA in that spot, you're putting LA in a position to just probably lose again. Lose a big match at WrestleMania for a championship, like another moment for the LA Knight fans. What do you do, man? I mean, I'd rather him face Penta than face Brock. The only answer for Brock, and dead horse is getting deader by day. It's Brock versus Oba. That is the only answer. If they were to run like Oba, Rusev, if they stretch that to Mania, I guess I can't say that's impossible, but I think it's unlikely for them to go that route. That just doesn't scream WrestleMania as much as Oba Brock. And again, Oba, I think we all know this. I don't think this is just a C2 thing. I don't think this is just your wrestling fan, average wrestling fan thinks this. Every wrestling fan, I think, wants the rocket strapped to Oba. And you do that by having him beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. And to that point, beat Brock Lesnar. I don't just want the match. Oba wins the match. That leaves a couple names out there. Penta can get involved again with a bunch of other guys. We'll figure out the IC title side of things. If it's not going to be LA against Penta, LA Logan, if they didn't face a bunch already, I would say is the match, but they have on top of Logan in theory, probably getting the Usos at WrestleMania. Man, again, 5, 6 weeks out. I suppose you could have somebody pop out of thin air in the next week or two and start feuding with LA, but it's not going to feel meaningful by WrestleMania. Maybe they surprise me, and it does. I don't fucking know. The most random name. Grayson Waller starts feuding with LA Knight. Maybe in 5 weeks' time, they can get a little bit of value to that. Doesn't seem likely. It's so out of left field. It doesn't really add up. It makes no sense that I don't think people are going to buy into that match. Replace Grayson Waller with pretty much anybody. Throw El Grande in there. Why would you do that? Because you have a feud with El Grande and El Grande right now. Like, it doesn't make sense. LA finds himself in a weird spot. Arguably, a worse spot than Drew was ever in. Drew and LA have been in the same pool of, like, as you said on the Raw review, the bridesmaid, never the bride. They were in that spot for a while. Drew finally gets his big win again in front of a crowd champion. LA, I think, is in like a worse limbo position than Drew ever was. I think deep down, we all kind of knew Drew would eventually get there. There was a lot of like, man, they are just not going to pull the trigger on Drew, but they finally did. LA Knight, I still have a little bit of that feeling. Like, I do think, and I've said, LA Knight, I believe, will be a champion in 2026, but man, doesn't help when he is one of the more prominent superstars in the company going into one of the most forgettable feuds, rivalries, or lack thereof come the biggest PLE of the year, WrestleMania.
All right, so let's think this through. Triple H hits our group chat, the three of us.
What's up, Trips?
He texts us, and he says, full control, keep it realistic. LA isn't going and being added to the WWE Championship or the World Heavyweight title match. Yeah, John Cena ain't coming out of retirement. Keep it realistic. What do you do with LA Knight at WrestleMania? I think I have an idea, but I want to know, what would you do if anything and everything can happen? You're in complete control. What do you do with LA Knight at WrestleMania?
It's tough. I'm on my phone right now. I'm looking at the Raw roster just to kind of get like a little bit of a refresher, make sure I'm not forgetting a name out there that maybe could tie it up with LA Knight. It's tough, man, because there is a couple names that you expect to make the WrestleMania card. Javon Evans, you expect to make the WrestleMania card. Javon Evans versus LA Knight, though, is not quite it. Again, maybe a multi-man IC title. That is probably where he fits the bill at this point, both Javon and LA Knight. But it's tough, man. I really am at a bit of a loss for LA. I mean, again, if Oba gets a Brock, you have a guy like Rusev free. But LA versus Rusev, like, that's going to be one of the one-on-one matches he booked for Mania. It just doesn't quite fit the bill. I didn't quite look at the SmackDown side of things. You maybe got to pull somebody from SmackDown, from NXT. You maybe have to go a little bit out there to make this LA Knight match work. So let me hear it. What do you got?
I think if Triple H tells me right now, I need a good idea. I need something that would get you interested, because that's the tough part with LA Knight. What matchup is going to get us interested that's not going to feel like some mega step down, but is also realistic? And there's slim pickings, if we're being honest. Like, slim pickings. And it's honestly not a knock on LA Knight. It's actually showing how much we value LA Knight, that we don't want him in some throwaway matchup. I think if I had to just come up with something, Bronson Reed is probably going to be out for quite some time. You assume Braun Breaker is going to be back. I know there's been a lot of mixing around with the division, but I do think you could, if you wanted to, add a member. And I do think you could call up Ethan Page and have him be another member of the Vision, and give Ethan Page LA Knight at WrestleMania. And LA Knight can win the match, and Ethan Page, we're not going to think lesser of him because he just lost to LA Knight. It's LA Knight. But then I start looking at right after WrestleMania, and LA can still kind of get in the mix with someone world heavyweight title esque. But Ethan Page can be the guy who goes for the Intercontinental Championship, maybe held by Penta, while Logan and Theory go for the tag titles. I feel like that's really the only, like, hey, come up with something fresh, but also keep it semi realistic that might still interest people. Because if you want to just play the numbers game, I love Damian Priest. You very well could say, hey, we're going to figure out a way and it's going to be Priest versus LA Knight. No one's going to care about that. I love both those guys, but there's going to be zero investment and zero logic behind that matchup. At least in this, you get something that you can at least kind of grasp, like, all right, I get it. I guess it makes sense. Because outside of that, like, what really makes sense?
The only other option I see, which changes another potential matchup, is old Trick Williams. Trick Williams versus LA. Makes sense. I can see that. That is a match I would buy into. And I actually don't hate it. It keeps Sammy off the Mania card. Sammy would not make WrestleMania if you go Trick versus LA, because then Sammy's in the LA spot of like, who? There'd be nobody else for him. But we've already discussed this is the person to miss out on WrestleMania, and it makes sense. It'd be storyline involved for Sammy to miss WrestleMania. I hate that. Sammy's a superstar. I would love for him to have a match. I'll put on a banger. If they book Sammy versus Trick, which seems like the route they're going to go, I'm bought in. I think that's fantastic. You got one of the most over up and comers in the company right now, Trick Williams versus, Sammy Hogan. Who doesn't want to see that? The Sammy hate is unreal. I would love to see him on WrestleMania, but again, leave him off makes sense, especially if you get a storyline involved. The brand split's dead, whatever. We're crossing brands over with LA and Trick. That's the only other potential matchup that really makes sense. I don't hate Ethan Page versus LA by any means. That feels a little bit like rushed and a little bit, pulling case of emergencies for LA Knight. I don't really think they're going to go that route. I think Ethan is a little post WrestleMania, but regardless, if it's not going to be Ethan, it's not going to be Trick. I'm out of options. That's it. That's truly it. There's no other choices for LA Knight at this point. I will be distraught if they go LA versus Brock. Tough year for LA, man.
And you know what kind of adds to all of this? And this is what makes it all even harder. I want LA to win. I don't want him in a match that he's going to lose. And that's why I lean towards like an Ethan Page, even if it is rushed. LA versus Trick. I love LA, but I don't want Trick losing at this year's WrestleMania. He's got so much momentum and all this superstar, possibility. I get that he will be totally fine if he loses to LA Knight, but it feels like you're on the precipice of a real, like, oh, he's becoming a star quicker than we thought. I would rather he wins at WrestleMania. I look at the LA Brock matchup, not only because I want Oba to face Brock and beat Brock, I think there's no way in hell they have LA beat Brock. So I don't want that match to happen on top of it because it's just a throwaway for both of them with LA losing and diminishing his value. I don't really know who else he can face where he's going to win and it still makes sense and it still kind of brings in fan interest. And it's not just he gets thrown into, he's number 5 of a 6-man IC title ladder match. It really does suck because I know there's always the bridesmaid, never the bride, whatever. If we didn't have the Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed injury, odds are LA Knight at least has like a clear route and most likely a win coming up at WrestleMania. But both those guys getting hurt and Rollins taking whoever is the healthy one, you're kind of just like slim pickings for the guy.
It is slim pickings. I do think LA I guess we're further out than we have been the last couple of years, but I think LA is probably the number one pick for the Money in the Bank right now. And that's September this year instead of June. But you want to keep, if that's the route you're going to go, and this is forward booking, you don't want to just not use the guy or keep him out of the picture entirely. Like, you want to give him some sort of relevant action matchup, whatever, all the way until then. Each, Raw, SmackDown, week in, week out, each PLE. And how do you at least keep him on the WrestleMania card if you're going to utilize him in that sense? It's tough, man. LA really does find himself in such a weird spot come this year. I still think there is possibility of some six-man tag type thing. The IC title probably gets defended now that it's on Penta, but there's always been a possibility of Penta and Dragon Lee in LA versus so on and so forth. With the Vision being down a couple members, that does also change things. But man, LA Knight, he was over the moon for so long and still is. He's been fantastic in the ring, especially for me ever since the LA Logan Paul match at SummerSlam. LA's always been great, but I feel like that match in ring catapulted LA, despite how many people want to bitch and complain over him slipping on a fucking rope at Elimination Chamber, which, if you didn't see, Finn Balor slipped on the same rope in that same night. So, it might have been the ropes, might not have been LA Knight, but how do you continue to capitalize on LA? Because LA was here for a while. This is peak. LA was like that guy that the fans wanted. And he hasn't dropped a lot, but he's dropped a little bit of steam. If you don't do anything with him at Mania, if you don't continue this LA height, like he's going down and down and down until people kind of forget about him. I don't know, man. I really think the only options for LA right now, whether I like them or not, are Brock, Trick, and I guess deep down there is a possibility of an Ethan Page or some sort of NXT name. Is there a world where we get a TNA name in the mix or something? Like, I don't want to say no, but it's a small chance. I don't think they're going to go that route. I just feel bad for LA, man. He does deserve better, does deserve more come this WrestleMania. I feel like if I was LA in his shoes, it's got to be kind of tough to know your position right now. No, they're trying to figure something out for you, but you see all these great things going on around you. If, no shade on Fatu. Fucking love Fatu. I want him to win the championship. If Fatu wasn't with the company for whatever reason, it would be LA in that slot. Like, LA would be that fourth guy in that fatal four-way, let alone without Fatu. Fatu could still be in the company. His trajectory's just been insane. LA, again, just barely misses that cut, it feels like.
I mean, this goes on. We think of when LA feuded with Roman for the championship. This is like 3 years ago at this point, where LA has been so close and the fans have been so behind him that I don't know, they've just always been afraid to kind of pull the trigger, and the fans haven't wavered. I don't think they'll start wavering anytime soon, but you are kind of teetering on, they won't waver on LA Knight, but they're going to get behind other people even more. And that isn't going to bode well for LA Knight if he keeps ending up being the odd one out, or, the bridesmaid, never the bride. I do want to shift over to SmackDown because Elimination Chamber really was about SmackDown if we think about it. Although the two title matches were for Monday Night Raw, the winners of the Chambers were all about SmackDown. Rhea Ripley wins. She's challenging Jade Cargill for the WWE Championship. Randy Orton wins, and he is going to WrestleMania to wrestle for the WWE Undisputed Championship, not possibly Drew McIntyre, who will face Cody Rhodes on SmackDown. I do have another complaint about people online. Shocker.
No.
I know. I just broke news there. It was very stunning, very unexpected. But we got the announced match of Drew McIntyre versus Cody Rhodes on SmackDown, and there's an immediate uproar. There's still like a strong following of people who are fully behind Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton for the championship. And they kind of want it. And then there's a strong following of people who are anti Cody, anti Drew not being in the championship match. These are the same people that thought it was just going to be Drew Cody one on one at WrestleMania, whatever. I feel like there's a strong, I don't know, overreaction every week with the WWE Championship. If you watch SmackDown, which I get it, not everyone is watching every single week. There's a lot of wrestling programming. I understand that. But if you've been watching SmackDown for the last 2, 3 months, there's really been four guys in the mix for the WWE Championship. And for quite a while, it is felt that it was going to be a fatal four-way or a multi-man match for the WWE title. We've even mentioned before Elimination Chamber, they could have done the Chamber for the title. There's been that many guys in the mix. Now we're at a point where it seems Randy Orton is most likely going to face Cody Rhodes and or someone else in the WWE Championship match. I don't like the people turning on that potential matchup, but I do understand it. But I don't have that crazy panic because I watch the show and because I see Jacob Fatu is clearly in the mix with not just Drew McIntyre, but Cody Rhodes. He's not going anywhere and he's going to be in the mix. So I think some people need to kind of pump the brakes. Hell, Cody Rhodes might even win on Friday. I don't think he's going to. I think Jacob Fatu gets involved, or maybe even Randy Orton inadvertently gets involved. But Cody Rhodes might walk out as WWE champion on SmackDown, and I'm still leaving that show thinking, still a pretty good shot we get a fatal four-way.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good shot to get a fatal four-way. Now listen, if Cody wins on SmackDown, wins the championship, this doesn't drastically change the WrestleMania plans outside of who goes in as champion. But I'm going to argue if Cody were to win the championship, that's a mistake. That's a massive mistake because Drew should be champion going into Mania. And for so long, we just got off the back of talking about Drew in LA being the bridesmaid, never the bride. And Drew finally, quote unquote, gets his flowers. You know, he wins the championship, but he still hasn't quite gotten his flowers. I think people need to put more credit on Drew right now for really kind of holding down this feud, holding down this rivalry for so long. He's been fantastic week in and week out. The cold open of SmackDown, him coming out and talking shit was great. I think Drew's been fantastic. There is a world, we talked about this very briefly, might not have even been on air to be fair, but there is a world where Cody does win the championship and it's Cody versus Orton at WrestleMania and it's Drew versus Fatu in one-on-one matches. Cody versus Orton, I obviously understand the appeal there, and I want that match as well. But I think that match isn't necessarily right now. I do think that match is probably this year. I think post WrestleMania, we start to get a little bit more of a Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton feud. But I think that match itself, for a long while, was very much like, that's a WrestleMania main event. That's a WrestleMania match at the very least. But I think, you know, we're going to shape it up for SummerSlam a little bit more, as I probably shouldn't draw double S's in the air. That's a little bit bad, actually. I'm just gonna rewind. Yeah. Anyways, Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton at SummerSlam, I think makes a little bit more sense. I don't want to say it's a bust, like as bad as Oba Brock is. If that were to not happen, Oba Brock is like the glue holding WrestleMania together. That's the match that has to happen, in my opinion. Very closely behind that is this fatal four-way now. Any other match, for whatever reason, gets scrapped, I might be upset because I wanted so-and-so to face or whatever. But those are the two matches with that fatal four-way really creeping up. No excuses. You pull the trigger on that. It's also just different. It's just different. What's the last, for a championship fatal four-way triple threat at WrestleMania? You date all the way back to Edge, Daniel Bryan, Roman, 37. So we're looking at, right, 5 years for the men at the very least. It's been since a multi-person Mania title match. It's been a while. Fatal four-way. Are we talking WrestleMania 2000? It's been ages. And it's not just the match itself being multi-man and that being special, it's the setup. Penta, again, might have a multi-man match at WrestleMania, but with a 5 week build of them just kind of throwing people in there to get them on the card, and Javon Evans and so forth. Cody and Drew have been feuding for, I don't know, it's 2026, 15 years. Like I have no idea. Fatu and Drew have been feuding ever since Drew got taken, or Drew took out Fatu, I should say. Orton and Cody, maybe not feuding, but obviously massive history there. Plus, Orton finally pulled that trigger, hit that RKO in the chamber. Fatu and Orton haven't tangled up too much, but that's where we're going to get there in these coming weeks of SmackDown just before the show. Fatu, I would like to say, gets involved in Drew and Cody on SmackDown. I also think Orton, maybe ringside, maybe he's sitting at commentary, and that's how we really start to get the mix up of all four of these guys. One way or another, this is shaping up to be the match I want the most. As long as it's the Fatal 4-Way, I don't think it really matters how we get there at this point because all these guys have been so involved. As long as they get there, I think we'll be okay. Who wins the match? That's why it's so good. Fucking anybody could. How many times, when you date back to 37, Bryan, Edge, Roman was winning that match, I don't know, man. Even these, like, Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, any PLE, triple threats, Fatal 4-Ways, usually, all right, this guy or this guy is going to win. Any four of these guys win this match. And I'm walking out happy. It makes sense. Total toss-up. I've never really seen it be split 25% each way on who could win.
I think there's actually a very strong chance. People are so strung up on Cody, Orton, Fatu, Drew. I actually do think that happens. I do think we get Cody versus Orton, and we do get Fatu versus Drew. I think we get that right after WrestleMania. I think that is the split off of the Fatal 4-Way.
It's
And
almost like there's a PLE for that to happen
Yeah.
after WrestleMania.
Yeah. And like when you start building towards SummerSlam, like I think probably the main event of one of the nights of SummerSlam is very well Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. Like that is not far-fetched. The King of the Ring tournament probably then goes to the world title since last year it went to the WWE Championship, actually both of them again. So I think we do get those matches. I wouldn't be shocked if we walked out of Mania and maybe Orton turned heel during the match and won the title. Maybe Cody won after kind of screwing over Randy. And that's a Fatal 4-Way. There's no such thing as screwing someone over. But maybe Cody does win and then Orton attacks him after. And we get that actual Orton heel turn. And we get this match. And right now, with them facing at Mania most likely, I'm not necessarily sat here thinking next year has to be Cody versus Randy one-on-one at Mania if it's not this year. If it happens in the Fatal 4-Way, I am totally okay with SummerSlam getting the juice that it deserves of a Cody Randy one-on-one, massive story, massive feud, blood feud at that point. Like, I am fine with that because you're just enhancing your biggest show of the summer and making that feel just as big as WrestleMania, like it should. So the outrage on those one-on-one matches, well, we're going to get them at some point. Like the odds are we're going to get those. Now, is it impossible that Jacob Fatu wins the WWE Championship? No. I think very, very well then at Backlash, it's then just Fatu versus Drew. And then Cody and Orton are still building towards their inevitable feud. I do kind of lean towards, I think I'd be more surprised if McIntyre walked in and out of Mania as champion. Not from like a deserved standpoint, but more so from like a who do you face next? Who's the next opponent? This is the tough part about having the multi-person matches. If Drew retains, a Drew Randy feud, a Drew Fatu feud, it's already been going on for quite a while. And if you're keeping the title in that mix, it might kind of dry it out a bit. So just for the sake of like freshness, I think Drew might be likely to lose that match, but I feel pretty good that Drew's walking into Mania as champion.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident Drew walks in as champion. It would be a mistake if he doesn't. Um, Let me hear it. Just give me the name. If you're booking it, who do you have win the match? Fatu, Orton, Cody, or Drew?
They gonna hate this. He's QB1 for a reason, man. He's QB1 for a reason. That's like there's to me there's zero chance he's not in the main event. So he's gonna be in the match. It's either he's beating McIntyre or, it becomes a fatal four-way. Like there is just no galaxy. Cody Rhodes is not the main event of WrestleMania Night 1.
Well, let's start there. Yeah, like this match is main event night one. No excuses. Night two is obviously Punk versus Roman. Those are your two main events. There's no other match with enough equity to main event over either of these matches. The Cody, or sorry, not the Cody, the Punk Roman feud has been a feud for a while now, too. Don't get me wrong. But from the standpoint of these guys being on TV every week where Roman isn't, this is the most established feud going into Mania, is the mix up of these four guys. As for who wins the match, if I'm booking it, it is tough, man. I really can make an argument for anybody. Cody, QB1. That's your superstar. The baby face, there's maybe more heels for him to feud with, where if Drew were to walk out champion, like, I fucking love Ilya. I would love an Ilya-Drew feud, but I don't know if Ilya is there yet to be feuding for the WWE Championship post-WrestleMania, even though it would probably be in a losing fashion. Drew would continue on. There would just have to be some holdover names for Drew, and there kind of maybe isn't as many. I wouldn't hate it, though. I think Drew going in champion, coming out champion is a surprise in a good way. I don't think people quite expect it, so it would be good. Fatu, that's your, like, do you pull the trigger type wrestler. Is Fatu champion material? Absolutely. Right now, I mean, what do you do with Fatu after WrestleMania? You would have to continue the rivalry of these four guys to some degree if Fatu wins. Fatu would have to feud with Drew, Orton, Cody, or whoever post WrestleMania. Randy Orton, I mean, 15-time champion, about to be, maybe. That would be your reasoning to put it on him. Orton can feud with realistically whoever until SummerSlam, flip it back to Cody, whatever happens there. Cody winning, I think, might be the most boring of the options, if I'm being honest. I don't hate it. I can see the route. But I think Cody, for Cody, is a little bit better without the championship right now. That guy's going to be champion again one day. I don't know if he needs his third title win right now. I think you can do a little bit more with the story of the championship by just having it on somebody else for a little bit longer.
I think I would do it this way, and this I will fully admit does include some bias because I do love Cody. I love all four of these guys. There's so many people that I love right now in WWE, so it's not a matter of like disliking someone. I think if they asked me how do I play this out, and we kind of think Cody's going to win at Mania, because to be real, that fan base amongst, there's still a whole lot of Cody merch. He's still QB1. Like, it's still big time Cody. And he had a horrific loss at last year's Mania that we almost need to, like, wash away.
What are you talking about? That doesn't happen.
Yeah. I have no clue what I just mentioned. I think I would have it play out this way. I think I would have Fatu and Drew in the match, and Drew does something to kind of take out Fatu, whether it be like a low blow Claymore and he goes through a table, whatever. Something like kind of crazy, and Fatu's out of it. It's left to Orton, Drew, and Cody. And Orton hits an RKO on Drew, and Drew is out. And he's about to go for the cover. And Cody grabs Orton and throws him into the turnbuckle post, shoulder first. Cody steals the win, 1, 2, 3. Cody's the champion again. And Cody, Orton pulled the trigger on Cody. Cody has pulled the trigger on Orton. There's that tension brewing. Mixed kind of reactions from the crowd. The kids are happy. The adults are pissed. Orton was so close. And then we get to Cody versus Orton at Backlash. Cody knows he stole it from Orton. He's got so much respect for Orton. He's a fighting champion. He'll face him again. And that's where we get where Orton punts Cody in the head. And Orton wins the championship almost to the level of Owen Zayn, but pretty heinous, and it's a heel turn. And now Orton gets title number 15, and Cody takes, let's say, a month off or so. Gets that little bit of a breather from the crowd. And then when he comes back, this is even more of a blood feud at this point. And you've also bought yourself some more time to get to SummerSlam, where it doesn't feel like this is now dragging all the way from WrestleMania to SummerSlam. Orton still gets his 15th title reign. You've added another title to Cody, another notch in his accomplishments. And you're now building up towards this WWE Championship at SummerSlam between Orton and Cody, Orton being the heel. I've seen people say Cody Rhodes is going to turn heel and Randy Orton will be the babyface. Not a chance.
Actually, negative chance of that happening. Hear me out on this. All right, let's say Fatal 4-Way. It's WrestleMania. It's night one, and like you said, to some degree, Fatu and Drew kind of take each other out. Not necessarily Fatu gets taken out, but let's say they take each other out. Some sort of, I don't know, fucking Shane McMahon, Miz suplex through some tables, like both those guys.
We sent the video out, so I'm hopeful everybody had a chance.
That's a work
Anyways,
meeting. That's a work meeting getting loaded up.
Anyways, let's say Fatu and Drew kind of take each other out, right? And now that's how you then, post WrestleMania, they can continue their feud. Drew and Fatu, they both kind of cost each other the match by taking each other out. Now in the ring, it's Orton and Cody. Those are kind of your last two guys. We're 20 minutes into this match. It's kind of coming down to them two. Drew and Fatu are out cold. They're not coming back. Is there a possibility in that scenario? We'll see what happens on SmackDown in the coming weeks. But is there a world where, Orton's, winding up, he's about to hit that punt, about to hit that RKO, whatever it is on Cody, and that camera pans over to a black mass taking out Randy Orton, and Cody actually capitalizes on it, gets the win on Orton, not cheating, but off the back of Alistair kind of interfering. After WrestleMania, Orton obviously pissed at Alistair. That's the Backlash match, Orton Alistair. Cody does whatever the fuck Cody does. Who knows? Drew gets a rematch, whatever. I don't know. Fatu somewhere. And then Cody, or Orton, I should say, obviously starts to get into that heel turn because Cody won in that fashion, thought we were boys type thing, whatever. And then that sooner or later leads to the SummerSlam match, Cody versus Orton. I do just find it interesting that Alistair is still like slightly involved with Orton at the very least. I know he's not tied up with Cody or Fatu or Drew right now, and he wouldn't get involved in a sense of I'm helping Drew win. It would more be I'm screwing Orton. I've already pitched, I think in the next 2-3 weeks on SmackDown, you book Orton versus Alistair, and that's where you have Drew, Claymore Orton or something. And, obviously Alistair gets a big SmackDown win over Randy Orton. Not once, but twice again. And that should set up Alistair for some sort of mid-card title match at WrestleMania. But I don't think that's impossible. I think there is a world where they keep Alistair and Orton a little bit involved and something along those lines happen. But I'm going to sneeze again. Anyways.
I agree that is very possible. I think there would be less of a chance if there were a Saturday night's main event or some other big show between now and Mania that you're like, this is the matchup for Orton and Alistair. This is the payoff. This is the Batista Del Rio feud. This is that little holdover because there is 7 weeks. Because there's
callback.
Because there's not, that makes you think like this could really happen at any point. This could be in 2 weeks at SmackDown and Orton just RKOs him and it's done. Or this could drag all the way to WrestleMania and even after WrestleMania. And we know Alistair is not foreign to quite the long stories and quite the long feuds, considering his feud with Damian Priest went about 6 months. So I actually don't think that that's that impossible. And I think it kind of saves Cody in a bit where Orton just beat him in that same exact fashion pretty much. And Cody isn't necessarily screwing Orton, but he's not helping him.
Yeah.
But he's not trying to stop it from happening.
Yeah, I mean, they'll play it to that exact point, like Orton comes out pissed, at Cody in the sense, but hey, you beat me in the chamber in essentially the same way, like you didn't stop and pick me up in the chamber. You RKO'd the shit out of me. So fatal four-way, it's no DQ. I got the win in the fashion I had to. I think it helps keep Alistair relevant. Not that he wouldn't stay relevant in other ways, but it keeps him relevant to like a higher level. He's not maybe in the championship feud himself, but he's, kind of at the tail end of it at the very least. I think that's a fun way to like maybe do it. I'm not saying they're going to go that route. I don't necessarily expect it, but I think, if I was in creative, that'd be at least like on the table. I would pitch that to a point and see if we can workshop that. I think that's a fun way to do it. The overall theme, though, is to set up Orton Cody SummerSlam. I think no matter how you get there, that's the match for this SummerSlam. It's still 2 nights this year, right? Definitely. Yeah, that is night 1 or night 2 main event. However you get there. Orton, though, obviously has to go heel. He is the heel out of these 2 guys. Cody one day turns heel. 5 years from now. I don't fucking know. It ain't happening anytime soon. Anybody that's pitching that or talking about that, you may want it. I get it. We fantasy book shit all the time. It ain't happening, though. Cody ain't turning heel quite yet. Drew Fatu stay involved for a little bit. Cody Orton, Alistair Orton kind of in like a trifecta in a little bit of a way. I think that'd be a fun way to push them all post-WrestleMania.
I do want to go back to the potential matchups of the singles matches because I understand the worry with them. And I should say that they're not impossible. I just don't think they actually happen. Another piece that kind of plays into it. At this point, SmackDown happens. You're pretty much like around 6 weeks until Mania. Mania is the later half of the middle of April. What, the 18th and 19th, whatever. At this point,
1920
or 1920, yeah. And you're on SmackDown. It's March 6th, so you're about a month and a half from Mania. Is that like? I mean, it's a month and a half of television, but this Orton Cody feud, to me, it feels like if they're facing one-on-one, WWE might not feel this way. WWE may, who knows what they think nowadays, but they may think that just having them face is good enough. To me, Mania feels more like the payoff of the blood feud, or like they're at a breaking point at this
transitional point or something.
Yeah. Like to me, it doesn't feel like I shouldn't say the start of things, but if Orton won the Rumble and Cody was still champion, then I'd see it more. Because it's like you've got some more time for this story to get a little more personal. If Cody was already WWE champion and Orton won the Chamber, then again, I'm like, all right, maybe they are actually just one-on-one. You've straight up got it. If Cody wins the championship on Friday, the next show is what, March 13th? You're now looking at almost exactly a month until Mania. That's going to be their first like legit promos against each other. And even then, you're still getting some of the remains of McIntyre and Fatu. Like, it feels more rushed. And I get it. I don't want to be like, we've always asked for that match. Don't complain that we're now getting it. I'm not complaining that we're getting it, but it would feel a little lesser having gone this route. I am very happy they spiced things up and had McIntyre win the championship. But if the end goal was just straight up Cody versus Orton night 1, they probably should have flipped the title back a little bit earlier, or they should have did something a little bit sooner. Hell, had the chamber match be for the title, something that got us there just a little bit quicker for the sake of the build for the Mania match.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only a little earlier in this pod, I said the same thing about Penta winning the title, the IC title. It's great, but again, like when you're only 5-6 weeks out from Mania, it's hard to then add a crazy amount of value to Penta's eventual Mania feud. Uh, I think the overall, need out of this Fatal 4-Way, post Fatal 4-Way, I guess I should say, is this is the end point and the start point. This is the end point of Cody Drew. Done come WrestleMania. This match happens. Drew retains. Cody wins. Fatu wins. Orton wins. Doesn't matter. I don't need to see Cody and Drew involved for a long while. Drew and Fatu are still feuding. That is the way they go. Cody, Orton then start feuding. Maybe that gets, held out longer till SummerSlam, I should say. But there's a couple ways to set up all four of these guys post WrestleMania that I realistically need to happen. This is the more we talk about it. Again, we've been on this topic for a bit now. The more I really am locked in that this is just right alongside Oba and Brock has to happen. Fatal 4-Way. Oba has to win that match. This match, the winner can kind of go any other way, and I'm okay with it. But it is in that same ballpark of has to happen come WrestleMania. If not, it's the bust. I will absolutely categorize this just like I do Luke Harper missing out on that main event at WrestleMania 33.
Especially as I mentioned, we watched the show. They have been building this as a Fatal 4-Way for months now. To then get this close and just do one-on-one and one-on-one would feel like malpractice. It would feel like you just went against your entire booking for the last 3 months, 4 months.
Also too, how often, like we've had some fucking fantastic Fatal 4-Ways over the years. I always think back to the TakeOver Fatal 4-Way, NXT, the Sami Zayn, Miz, Cesaro. Like there's been some great Fatal 4-Ways in history. The greatest Fatal 4-Ways don't really have a lot of like booking history. Oh, this was booked as the greatest. No, like it just kind of happened to be a Fatal 4-Way. This is arguably the best set up Fatal 4-Way if they go the route of it being a Fatal 4-Way. All these guys involved, everybody's feuding with one another. What was the wasn't it like Big E when he was champion? There was a Fatal 4-Way there, or something like that.
That was a Fatal 5-Way.
Fatal 5-Way, yes. Yeah, like they don't like usually come that naturally. It's usually so and so forth won his way into the match. Like this guy wasn't feuding with Big E at the time. He's just in the match. All these guys are feuding. It makes so much sense that if you don't run it, it's the bust of the weekend potentially. It is a massive mistake. I do think people want the trigger pulled on Fatu. I don't want to say it's early for Fatu because I would be happy with him winning, but I don't know if that's like it's the biggest holy shit moment of the weekend possibly, but I don't know if that's like the answer to this match. I do think, I did say prior, it's like 25% each way. It might be like 30, 30, 30, and then a little bit less on Fatu, but I'm here for the surprise. Yeah, I'm here for the surprise.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's as even. Hell, I'd argue Drew probably has even lesser odds than Cody and Orton. I think their odds are probably a little bit higher than Drew's, but his are probably higher than Fatu's. But I'm not shocked any way this match plays out. I think realistically, any of these four guys can win. And as you said, it is just a bust at this point if we don't get the Fatal 4-Way. They have had pretty well under Triple H. They got away from it a little bit, but during I say the peak, during Mania 40, after Mania 40, they've always been great at intertwining stories and having people feud with multiple people. This is the first really good one where people are feuding with multiple people, but it's all each other and it can all finish. We have had right now, we have that going on. I don't think of Sammy and Trick as being added to this match just because they have some sort of connection. No, that's just they're connected to these people. These are four people that three of them have legit feuds in one way or another. The only one that you mentioned hasn't really happened is the Orton Fatu, and there's still a chance that they end up revealing Orton was the one who attacked Fatu in the first place. And that immediately ties them two together. And now all four have a legit like blood feud for the WWE Championship. So I think it just has to be the route, especially when it comes to WrestleMania and being a main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, these are two, very reasonable main events. CM Punk versus Roman, Fatal 4-Way for the SmackDown side of things, Fatu, Orton, Cody, Drew. I mean, the undercard will shape out. It already it already is starting to. We've talked a bit about some of the other matches, but those are two worthy main events off the back of last year's WrestleMania. Also worthy main events on paper. Night 1 main event last year was obviously fucking fantastic. Night 2 main event, we got to recover a little bit. We got to make up this year's WrestleMania. Yeah, what was that Night 2 main event? I don't even remember.
WrestleMania was one night last year.
Yeah, it only was one night. Yeah, it was actually only one match. It was just that triple threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually just both triple threats. The women's world title.
Yeah, and the women's triple, yes. Yep. And Dom did win the IC title.
Yeah, the Fatal 4-Way. Yeah, I think that was it.
That was it. It was a small card. We're shaping up to get a better WrestleMania. I'm not going to sit here and say that this WrestleMania build, top to bottom, is the greatest thing we've seen quite yet. We still got some weeks to where it can play out and can improve in a lot of facets. But at least these two championship matches, the Fatal 4-Way and then the Rumble winner, Roman versus CM Punk, we're going to be getting a good couple weeks of TV here. SmackDown is already better than Raw. Raw needs to step it up a little bit. This week was at least step 1 in that process. Hopefully they can keep up with that as our mascot gets involved. SmackDown, though, I'm tuned into SmackDown. There's a lot of things in the SmackDown undercard I already want to see. But this Fatal 4-Way, I'm ready for SmackDown. I want to see the direction they go with Cody versus Drew for the championship.
I think he's telling me I got to wrap it up. I think he said this doesn't work for me, brother. He just wants to go in his window and relax. But that is going to wrap it up because we still have plenty of stuff to talk about. But I've got work and meetings, so I can't talk about it yet. We'll have to wait until Friday Night SmackDown for when we find out if Cody Rhodes beats Drew McIntyre, or we know even more that this will be a Fatal 4-Way, and we'll see how the Rhea Ripley, Jade Cargill spillover from the rivalry on Twitter and Instagram goes and whatever. There's a lot to talk about that we are going to talk about that you need to be there and talk with us by not being a coward and subscribing.
Yeah, like you said, we'll find out on SmackDown who is the champion going into WrestleMania. We'll find out after this video who's a coward and who's not by who clicks that button. So stay tuned in. We got WrestleMania coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're C2 Wrestling.
Goodbye.